How Ireland's chefs are rediscovering the joys of cooking with seaweed. Please subscribe my channel, like, share and press the bell button. In Connemara, the beaches are strewn with seaweed, which brings a delicate umami hit to everything from cookies to pesto. And although it's spent decades out of favor, cooks have come to re-embrace this most Irish of ingredients. Within the soft, nutty yellow corn tortilla is a slick of piquant, smoky salsa, pan-wilted rainbow chard, and a crowning of cheese, finely grated in pale, positively delicate curls. The main bulk of the filling looks and bites like stewed lentils, but the fatty texture and umami complexity is more reminiscent of minced meat, all slow stewed and jammy. Yet, it's neither. It's made from dried seaweed pulp. "It's a funny story with this one," says Sinead O'Brien. "This was completely accidental and, like most things with seaweed, you're just experimenting to see what works and what doesn't." Sinead's mother Cindy is an aquaculture expert, originally from California, but who's lived in Ireland since the mid-1990s. One day, Mom made seaweed cookies using sea spaghetti, which she grinds into a pulp. Sinead continues, "She had some left over, so I suggested we experiment and see what happens, because this could kind of work like minced meat, and it turned out perfect." Together, mother and daughter run Mungo Murphy's Seaweed Company, an organic aquaculture farm producing seaweed products and abalone, as well as hosting foraging tours. The company's base is a rocky perch in Connemara, where the Atlantic Ocean meets Galway Bay, on Ireland's west coast. From Mungo Murphy's glass-fronted container pod at Kieranagirk, I can look out onto the moody but pristine water. The waves launch themselves at the shore, putting into perspective the effort and risk of venturing out on fishing vessels, battling storms and swells far from home in order to bring back the spoils of the deep sea. Seaweed, meanwhile, comes quietly, arriving like a gift from the water. It announces its presence when the tide recedes by bobbing on the surface, clinging to rocks and dancing in the wash and backwash. Seaweed just happens. Top: majority of seaweed is still gathered by hand at low tide. Bottom: there are several aquaculture farms in Ireland that grow several varieties of Irish seaweed. A sense of place. In the morning, I drive to the village of Bail na Echaban for breakfast at Poda, a café cum community hub, where Irish is the working language, staff and menus are bilingual, and the color scheme reflects Connemara's landscape: moody navy blues, stony greys and pops of yellow, the shade of gorse, Ireland's native wildflower. The menu makes the most of hyper-local produce, but takes inspiration from further afield, including dishes that aren't so common in these parts, such as ramen and fish tacos. Body and soil. In Connemara's remote corners, the terrain becomes more rugged, vast and wild. Villages are little more than clusters of houses, and main roads quickly turn to skinny boithrini, literally, small roads, with tufts of grass as median strips and barely a car's width to squeeze through. Many predate cars, in fact, and were originally designed for horses and carts, so it's a glimpse into an Ireland of old, where industry, tourism and in some cases infrastructure haven't quite reached. Ciantar na Noilian is an archipelago linked to the mainland by a network of roads and bridges, and on one of the largest islands, Leatir Mealain, is the Seaweed Centre. Opened in 2019, this visitor center, spa and café is dedicated to communicating and preserving the seaweed heritage of this area through experiences including seaweed safari, tours and seaweed bathing. The coast is rocky and remote, though little inlets and sandy beaches dot the coastline, lapped by clear water. Seaweed farming has been important for generations, manager Padraic Mac Diarmada tells me, but more often than not, seaweed was seen as a fertilizer rather than a foodstuff. This, Padraic says, has been part of the problem. Yet, even as a fertilizer, seaweed's nutritional properties have played a vital role in feeding the people of this area. Even now, it's still used in this way across the country's coastal regions. Many of Galway's villages feel removed from the 21st century. As well as nourishing the soil, seaweed is good for the body, too. Padraic describes it as basically anti-anything you can imagine. Anti-inflammatory, anti-oxidizing, you name it. It's also great for relieving stress, relaxing muscles, and as a natural way to help with some skin conditions. There are plans for the Seaweed Center's cafe to include more seaweed in its dishes, but for now there's the seaweed bath. It's a soothing, hour-long soak in a roll-top tub, surrounded by bladder wrack, each long strand like a piece of couture, ombre hued from midnight black to chartreuse. J.P. McMahon's crab claws with seaweed and samphire. Using several varieties of seaweed, this dish offers a taste of the Irish coast. Serves, 4 takes, 15 minutes. Ingredients: 35 grams butter, 12 cooked crab claws, shells removed, 50 grams samphire, 25 grams fresh sea lettuce. For the seaweed vinegar, make 750 milliliters, 300 milliliters white wine vinegar, 100 grams castor sugar, 30 grams fresh kombu, 30 grams fresh sugar kelp, 10 grams fresh dulse, 1 teaspoon sea salt. J.P. McMahon's crab claws with seaweed and samphire uses several varieties of Irish seaweed. Method: 1. Combine all the ingredients for the seaweed vinegar in a medium pan with 200 milliliters water. 1. Set over a medium heat and stir until the sugar has dissolved. 1. Remove from the heat and allow to cool, then transfer to a sterilized jar. 2. Melt the butter in a large pan set over a medium heat. 2. Once it starts to foam, reduce the heat, add the crab claws and cook for 3–5 minutes until warmed through. 3. Season the crab claws with salt and the seaweed vinegar to taste. Then serve on a platter and garnish with the samphire and sea lettuce.